On.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is the September meeting of KFNA, the Kingfield Neighborhood Association, September meeting of 2021. Welcome everybody, welcome neighbors and other folks who have joined us here today. This meeting is the meeting of our Kingfield Neighborhood Association board. The board is made up of 13 members, and it looks like we do have a quorum here today. So we'll get started right away because we have a packed agenda. If somebody could please throw the agenda in the chat for us, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. For new folks who haven't been to a meeting before, our meetings run from about 7 till 9. This will be a little bit of a not typical meeting in that we will be having a presentation and question and answer for about the first hour, and then we'll be conducting a more kind of typical board meeting for the last hour. You're more than welcome to stay after the city clerk's presentation for the first hour. You're also more than welcome to leave. I will say for our typical board meetings, we have kind of open meetings, so you are more than welcome to stay and participate in the discussion as you would like, and we would encourage that. So I will, what I'm actually going to probably do so we can move along is move kind of our community forum section after our community forum part of the evening to after the presentation, as that seems to make a little bit more sense. So since we do have a lot of folks here, we maybe won't do formal introductions, but I would encourage folks to maybe throw in the chat, especially our board members who are here right now, who they are, and we typically say names, pronouns, and kind of approximate location in the neighborhood on where you live. If you would like to also throw anything else in there, notes to the board, notes to neighbors, that will be the place to do that. So with that said, I will call the meeting to order officially and ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes tonight's agenda, which has been posted in the chat, and the minutes from the July meeting.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor from board members, thumbs up, yeses in the chat, or ayes. Opposed and abstentions. Okay, great. We are rolling. I will welcome and say thank you for joining us to our city clerk, Casey Carl. This is obviously a topic around the charter amendments that has dominated a lot of the news cycle, and I think a lot of people are really interested in it. So I appreciate folks on both our board and staff who have reached out to the city clerk's office and have both arranged this discussion and other discussions that we are going to be having in the future around the amendments. So with that said, Casey, I'm assuming you'd be able to share your screen with the presentation, and I will kick it over to you. And I also will just say quickly, please hold your questions to the end. We will have a portion for questions after the city clerk is able to finish his presentation. So thank you much.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm excited to be with you all tonight. I'm going to try and share my screen. This is always fun for me because I don't use Zoom normally, and I'm pretty technologically challenged as a starting point. So it looks like I got a thumbs up that you can see my screen. I'll also start by saying I have shared this presentation with Sarah, so hopefully if you can get that from her, and feel free to look at it. My notes are included as part of the slides. So if you're looking for more information or background, that should be helpful to you as well. Obviously, I have a lot to communicate to you tonight, and I'm going to move as quickly as I can. Holding questions till the end is probably a good idea unless there's something burning, and maybe Sarah, you and Chris can help facilitate since I can't see who may have questions. I'm going to start by saying my name is Casey Carl. I have the privilege of serving as the city clerk for the city of Minneapolis. I joined the city of Minneapolis in this capacity in 2010, so I'm starting my 12th year in this position. I'm here tonight to share with you information about 3 ballot questions that are being proposed for referral to voters as part of the municipal election ballot in November. I, at the very beginning, want to start by saying there are a lot of opinions and perspectives and statements and thoughts around these questions, and that's good. These are very significant issues that would have long-lasting implications for our city and our community. I'm not here to attempt to sway you either way on any of these questions for or against. I'm simply here to provide you very fact-based. These are the facts of these questions. I will respond to questions in the same manner. I will start by saying that early voting starts in 9 days. So the first ballots in this year's elections start in 9 days, and we're just 55 days away from the election. So my elections team and I are very, very busy, obviously, preparing for that. At the end of this presentation, my slides will have some resources that are also available to you if you want more information. So let's get started. Obviously, the 3 ballot questions that are before the voters this year are proposed amendments to our city charter. And sort of for background, many of you may know this, forgive me if I'm covering ground you already have, but I think it helps to frame us and level set where we are. The city charter is like the city's constitution. Legally, it is the delegation by the state government of its central and inherent governing authority to the city to be exercised at the local level for the common good of the community. And so as a constitution, it really is the principal source of legal authority from which the city derives its powers, its duties, and its responsibilities. And while a city charter can and does do many things, some of the most important are those that are shown on this slide. So for example, our charter defines the powers and authority of the city government, which are granted to us by the people of Minneapolis, again, in the form of a constitution. Secondly, it prescribes the operating structure within which the city operates. So that means it defines how many officers we have, how they are selected, whether by election or appointment, if they have terms, what their duties are, any qualifications for those officers, and pretty much their duties and who reports to whom. So it's a structuring a framework for the city. And then it also provides or specifies those processes by which the city takes official action. Primarily what the charter frames up are the legislative process of council, which is its broadest authority to make decisions through the enactment of ordinances. Ordinances being legally defined as the equivalent of a municipal statute. So if the charter is our constitution, and at the state level, they have a constitution and they have statutes. We have a charter and ordinances. Ordinances are our version of statutes. And so it prescribes our legislative process. It prescribes our finance process, how we do budgets, how we do capital budgets, how we do investments, how we do debt finance and bonding. So a lot of detail on financial operations. And then it also prescribes in very, very high level form some of the land use zoning. So those are really where you start getting into the police powers of city government that tie into state and federal laws. So again, these 3 things are sort of the foundation of any constitution, and they're the things that our city charter does for us. The amendments that are on the ballot tie into these things. And as I discuss them, I want you to think back on how they tie into this sort of constitutional framework. So the 3 questions that will be on the ballot this year, shown here, one relates to government structure. I just talked about how the charter provides the structure of the government's operation. One of them talks about creating a new department within the charter, a Department of Public Safety. And then the third one talks about a policy. So that would be more like the processes, decision-making of government, tied to a subject called rent stabilization. So I'm going to go through each of these 3 questions, and for each of them, I'm going to provide the same detail. I'm going to tell you how the question was submitted this year. I'm going to tell you the major components of each of the questions, if adopted. I'm a very visual learner, so I've put some visual charts in here to help you understand the impact if it were to be adopted. And then I'm going to actually provide you the ballot language so you can see exactly what you should expect to see on your ballot for each of these 3 things. So we'll start with the first one, government structure. This is a proposal that was brought to us by the Charter Commission. So I spent a lot of time framing up that the city charter is our constitution. Using that same example, the Charter Commission then is like the city's standing constitutional convention. It is the Charter Commission which holds in trust our charter for the people of Minneapolis. To have a city charter, you have to have a Charter Commission. That's according to the state constitution grant of home rule authority. They are appointed by the chief judge of the district court, and they hold that charter in trust for all of us who live in Minneapolis. They have proposed this proposal to amend, which is about government structure, to propose an executive mayor legislative council form of government. I've included here the statutory reference under which the Charter Commission is acting with its authority, Minnesota Statutes 410.12, subdivision 1. And then I've also provided in our legislative information management system available through the city's website, the file number where you can find all of the information about this proposal. That's file CH 2021-12. So I've given you a high-level summary of how we got this proposal. Now I'm going to go into the major elements. So the major elements of this proposal are about how the city would be structured. It would establish a structure for city government based on what's known as a separation of powers that includes checks and balances between an elected executive, the mayor, and an elected legislative body, the council. Most of us are familiar with what a separation of powers government is. This is the form of government that exists at the federal level with a president and Congress, at the state with a governor and a state legislature, and in the other first-class cities in Minnesota, St. Paul, Rochester, and Duluth have that system as well. So that is the highest level impact of this question. Then specifically within that, this amendment would define the city council as being that city legislative body responsible for legislation, policy, and oversight of the executive. It would then define the mayor as being the city's chief executive officer and its administrative authority. It would eliminate the executive committee, and I'm going to put a pin in that because that's a really interesting discussion, a long one. We're going to spend some time on the next slide dealing with that executive committee piece. And then it would define the city's administration as being all of the operating departments under the mayor as the chief executive officer. So that's at a high level, very simplistically, what this proposal would do if adopted. Those are its major elements. Now, in terms of understanding that, I'm going to get into my charts. So this is an organizational charter, table of organization for the city government today, as it exists today under our current charter. I didn't come from Minnesota. I didn't come from Minneapolis. I came to Minneapolis from Kansas City. I was a county clerk in Johnson County, Kansas, before coming here. And so in coming here, I know that there are various ways of describing our form of government as a weak mayor, strong council, a strong council, weak mayor, or a strong mayor, strong council, whatever. I will share with you, none of those explanations or descriptions are true. The actual truth of what our Minneapolis form of government is a system of shared power. And that's shown in our org chart because you have the mayor and the council at the top who are elected, but you see that line that connects them? That's because under our charter, the council can do nothing. Actually, there's three things and only three things it can do, which are very minor, without the approval of the mayor. And the mayor can't really do anything without the council. Our system of government of shared power is designed to force the mayor and council to work together. You'll see beneath them, though, there's a line that goes to that body called executive committee. Because through the history of the city of Minneapolis, the various personalities that have hold the office of mayor and council have gotten along, haven't gotten along, cooperate, don't cooperate. Don Frazier, who was the longest serving mayor in the city's history and a very popular mayor, decided that he needed to assert his authority as the mayor. There were attempts to create a strong mayor system of government. They failed. And as a compromise, he actually pushed to put a ballot question in front of voters, and it was submitted to voters in 1984 and approved. So the executive committee was created by voters in Minneapolis in 1984. And what it is a midway body. It's chaired by the mayor. So the mayor is automatically the chair of the executive committee. And it includes the council president and 3 other council members. And the executive committee does many things, but probably its most important function is it is the appointing authority for the 10 charter departments that you see listed right below it in that dotted line. Those are the 10 what we call charter departments. You'll sometimes hear charter departments, non-charter departments, or management departments. The charter departments are those which I think of as providing traditional government service, public works, assessor, public health, police, fire, regulatory services, community planning, economic development. So these are the charter departments. The appointment of those 10 departments is vested collectively under our current charter, our shared power system, in the mayor and the council. So the way that that works is that the mayor has the exclusive power to nominate the heads of those departments. The mayor's nomination is referred to the executive committee, which is chaired by the mayor. And the executive committee is required to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the mayor's nomination. If they give it a thumbs up, then that referral is made to the city council. The city council then can confirm the appointment or reject it. But the council cannot consider and cannot take action on any appointment that is not referred to them with a positive recommendation by the executive committee. Likewise, none of those 10 departments, those charter departments, can be removed without the recommendation of the executive committee. So you can see that it's not the mayor or the council who really appoint those 10 departments. It's really this body called the executive committee that is a combination of mayor and council acting together, that shared powers system. Those charter department heads are appointed to 2-year terms by the mayor and council, except for the chief of police, who is appointed to a 3-year term. The thinking being there that the chief of police, being a 3-year instead of a 2 or a 4, the mayor and council serve 4-year terms, would overlap between elected mayoral terms, and that would potentially reduce the politics around that appointment. I don't know that that's necessarily the reality of what's happened, but that was the thinking behind making the chief of police term different from the other charter department heads. I should also note that originally the mayor and council and all department heads served 2-year terms. The mayor and the council were able to convince voters to make their terms 4, but they never changed it for the department heads. They kept their terms at 2. So those charter departments in the middle of the screen serve a 2-year term under the mayor and council through the executive committee. And then you'll see one at the bottom in the middle called coordinator. The city coordinator is as close as the city of Minneapolis comes to having a city manager. That position is appointed by the mayor and council through the executive committee and reports to them, and is the city's chief operations officer. You can see there's a line from the coordinator to the departments down below. So there's 10 charter departments and 10, what I've put here, coordinator or management departments. Those department heads are appointed by the coordinator, not by the mayor or the council. The mayor and council don't touch half of the departments. Those department heads are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the coordinator. They include enterprise functions like finance and budget and payroll, procurement, communications, human resources, labor relations, personnel, emergency management, intergovernmental relations, neighborhood community relations, the 311 and 911 telephone systems, and also our convention center. Those are all appointed by and under the direct supervision of the city coordinator. So that is our current organizational structure under the charter today. The proposal to move to an executive mayor legislative council proposed by the Charter Commission would make some pretty significant changes to this. That's on my next slide. So this is what the organizational chart would look like if that question were adopted by voters. You can still see the mayor and council adopted by the people at the top of the chart. However, now there's no line connecting the mayor and council. They are separate powers, just like, for example, president and Congress. You see that the 10 charter departments are now under a direct line to the mayor, but you see there's a dotted line from the council to that same group. And that's because the proposal says that the mayor would nominate these people, would appoint them, but only with the consent of the council. So if the council refused to consent, then the mayor would have to bring forward a new nomination. So it gives that check and balance between the executive power to appoint those department heads and the council's ability to check that. It would establish a legislative department to support the council, which includes its existing aides, the city clerk, a new elevated position of city auditor to help with its oversight and budget functions. And then, of course, as today, the ability to appoint citizen advisory boards and commissions. The departments then move over under the direct authority of the mayor, as I indicated. There's no change in the distinction between charter department heads shown in the middle and the coordinator departments that would still be under the coordinator. if that amendment were approved. So this is the major change in structure, largely one of the reporting of departments internally to the mayor with oversight by council. The question approved on the ballot that you'll see is, this is question number 1, government structure. I'll read it very quickly. It says, shall the Minneapolis City Charter be amended to adopt the change in form of government to an executive, mayor, legislative council structure to shift certain powers to the mayor, consolidating administrative authority over all operating departments under the mayor, and eliminating the executive committee. So you might remember, I'm going to go back one piece. Currently, we have that executive committee. Instead of having the 4-step process for appointments, there would just be the 2 between the mayor and the council. So that's why the elimination of the executive committee, I think, is a critical piece. And the other reason I think it's critical, just as an FYI historical, is because it was put into the charter by voters. So I think it's important for voters to know the voters put it in, the voters are being asked if they want to take it out. The next proposal we have is about the creation of a new department in the charter. It would be the Public Safety Department. This was a proposal to amend the charter initiated by citizen petition. The committee was the Yes for Minneapolis Petition Committee. This was submitted pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 410.12, subdivisions 1, 2, and 3. The LIMS file is shown here if you'd like to access those resources, 2021-578. The major elements of this proposal, if adopted by voters, is that it would create a new department called Public Safety in our city charter. Not all of our departments are listed in the city charter. Remember, I said there are differences between the charter departments and the non-charter departments. So this would clearly be a charter department, and it would then report to the mayor and the council like those other 10 charter departments I mentioned earlier. This new charter department would allow for the city to consolidate its public safety functions and provide those through a comprehensive public health approach, which could include police officers if necessary. It would put at the head of that department a new position, a department head position, which would be called the Commissioner of Public Safety. The Commissioner of Public Safety would be nominated by the mayor and appointed by the council following the same process for other charter department heads that I've already discussed. This amendment would remove the police department from the charter and replace it with the Public Safety Department. And it would also remove the mandatory minimum funding requirement for the police department currently and the additional taxing authority. And just as I mentioned with the executive committee, which was approved by voters in 1984, the mandatory minimum funding levels required were actually put into the charter by voter referendum in 1961. So again, no matter where you're on the position, I think it's important for voters to note, voters put it in, you're being asked to take it out. So that's why it's a critical element of this proposal. Again, here's a chart to show you, and again, I don't want to be overly simplistic here, but sometimes reducing it down to these pictures makes it easier to understand. This is the exact same chart I showed you when I was explaining the government structure proposal. You can see the mayor, the council, the executive committee, the 10 charter departments, the 10 management departments. At a very, very high level, conceptually, all this does is strike out the word police and put in the word public safety. So it's really about creating a box on the city's organizational chart. That's what it does. And it puts in charge of that box a new position called Commissioner of Public Safety that would report through that executive committee to both the mayor and council, just like those other charter departments that are shown in that dotted line. So that's the cumulative effect of this proposal. Here's the question, which the city council, I'm sure you know this, yesterday approved after the latest back and forth to the Hennepin County Courthouse. I'll read it very quickly. It says, shall the Minneapolis City Charter be amended to remove the police department and replace it with the Department of Public Safety that employs a comprehensive public health approach to the delivery of functions by the Department of Public Safety, with those specific functions to be determined by the mayor and city council by ordinance, which will not be subject to exclusive mayoral power over its establishment, maintenance, and command, and which could include licensed peace officers, because that's a statutory term that means police officers, if necessary, to fulfill its responsibilities for public safety, with the general nature of the amendments being briefly indicated in the explanatory note below, made part of this ballot question. And then it will have the following explanatory note. This amendment would create a Department of Public Safety combining public safety functions through a comprehensive public health approach to be determined by the mayor and council. The department would be led by a commissioner nominated by the mayor and appointed by the council. The police department and its chief would be removed from the city charter. The public safety department would include police officers, but the minimum funding requirement would be eliminated. So there's the question and the explanatory note that has been approved by the council and would be referred as the ballot question to voters. The third and final proposal to be referred to voters this year was initiated by the city council. It pertains to the subject matter of rent stabilization. The state statutes refer to this as rent control. And the city council initiated, if you followed this, 2 proposals originally. There's only 1 proposal going forward to the ballot. I'll talk about that in a bit. This is initiated by the council pursuant to Minnesota statutes 410.12 subdivision 5, and also, and this is important, 471.9996. The reason that statute there, 471, is important is because the state legislature has said, as a uniform state policy, no city has the authority to enact rent control. Full stop, period. The only way you can, as a city, have that authority is to get it by your voters giving you that power. And so this is the statute that we're looking to say, okay, we're putting that question before the voters to see if they would give the city council that power. So that statute becomes very important just for this 1 proposal. And then here again, the LIMS file, if you want details, 2021-104. The major elements of this proposal are that it seeks to establish as an enumerated power of the city, the ability to enact a rent stabilization policy by the city. So within the city charter, there are major articles. Article 4 is all about the city council. And this amendment seeks to amend the article about the city council to say it would be a power of the council to enact by its own ordinance or legislative process a rent stabilization policy. It would provide a 2-pronged approach to how such a policy could be adopted. First, the council and mayor working together could adopt an ordinance like they do on any other policy subject to enact rent stabilization policy. Or if they chose, they could develop the ordinance and refer it to voters as a ballot question. If they chose that pathway to refer that proposal to voters, it would require more than half of the votes cast on the question in its favor to be passed. So those are the major elements here. Before I move on, I'm going to just point out what's not being referred to voters was the second pathway, which was amending Article 1, General Government, which was to provide a limited right of initiative so that a certain number of voters by petition could submit a petition to put the question of rent stabilization on the ballot in the future. That was vetoed by the mayor. The council did not have the votes to override the mayoral veto on that, and so that proposal died. This proposal, which would make it a power of the council, was sustained by council, and so it goes forward to voters. Again, my visual diagram, very simplistic, is to walk you through basically the options that I just said. So the council, through its own authority, if this question were passed, would be able to initiate an ordinance the way they normally do. That ordinance would address a policy on rent control and how rent control or rent stabilization could be applied throughout the city on the rents of private properties. They would go through their normal legislative process, which is to give notice, to introduce, to formally give its first reading, to refer to a standing committee with subject matter jurisdiction, and to conduct public hearings in order to invite the public to give input on that proposal. And then at that point, when they're ready to have a final ordinance, they have a choice. So there's the split in the road. They could either go ahead and proceed to enact the ordinance, which would require at least 7 votes of council and the approval of the mayor, or they could say, we choose to refer this to voters, and they could make it a ballot question and refer it to the voters so that the voters could decide. If they choose that pathway that sort of deviates to the right on the screen, refer to voters, then at least more than half of the votes that are cast on that question need to be in its favor for it to be adopted. So a very simplistic outline of the process for rent stabilization if approved by voters. The question that will be referred to voters is here before you. Shall the Minneapolis City Charter be amended to authorize the City Council to regulate rents on private residential property in the city of Minneapolis with the general nature of the amendments being indicated in the explanatory note below made part of this ballot. And then it'll have explanatory note again, which just sort of lays out for voters who might not have heard any of this before they get to their ballot, that if adopted, this amendment would authorize the city council to regulate rents on private residential property in the city of Minneapolis by ordinance. It would provide that an ordinance regulating rents on private residential property could be enacted in two different and independent ways. One, the city council could enact by ordinance. Two, the city council could refer the ordinance as a ballot question to be decided by voters for approval at an election. If more than half of the votes cast in the ballot question are in favor of its adoption, then the ordinance would take effect 30 days after the election or at a later date if provided in that ordinance. So there's the explanatory note in the ballot language. I've summarized all three of the questions in the same manner as I promised I would do. I'm excited to show you the actual ballot questions on the actual ballot. I got the proof back last night from the county who produces the ballots for the city. And so there you have it. There are the three questions and there are three columns in their black and white glory. You know that this year we have ranked choice voting, which divides the ballot into three columns. So our questions will be one question in each column. On the far left, you can see the question as I read it to you on government structure, executive, mayor, legislative council. You can see the Department of Public Safety is question 2 in the middle column. And on the far right, city question number 3 related to rent control. So there is an image of the ballot as you'll see it. Here are some resources for more information from the city. We have on this first link at the top, which is a very long link. I'm sorry, the city does a really, really bad job at coming up with these URLs. They're so long and I hate them, but I have no control over the IT department. This will take you to a page where we've literally posted each of the questions, every resolution, every agenda, every draft, every action taken on each of the proposals. Then in the second there, I've taken you to each of the files where you can find more details about the specific formal proposals in our legislative system. You'd need to enter in each of the file numbers to pull those up. And then I always like to remind people, use your sample ballot. Sample ballots are not available yet. They come out the week of early voting, which begins in 9 days. So pretty much in about 7 days, the Wednesday before Friday the 17th, I would encourage you to go out and get your sample ballot. Print it off. Fill it out as if it were your real ballot because it's a duplicate of your real ballot. Take it with you to the polling place so that you can make sure you mark your choices correctly. And it's just another helpful prompt for you. It's legal for you to do that, for you to take that into the ballot place and encourage your friends and neighbors to do the same. Look at your ballot before you go to the polling place so you aren't surprised by things that you didn't know would be there or how they were worded. And then finally, here is my contact information. Please feel free to call me, email me at any time if you have further comments or questions or follow-up. And before I finish, I'm very hopeful that I can do this correctly, but in real time, and I'm so technologically challenged, I wanted to pull up our elections website. Sarah, do you see that? Is that a thumbs up? You see our elections website?
Nope, we can't see it.
Let me try again.
No, I don't see it. But I was busy trying to chat you a question anyways.
Let me try and share my screen again because I want to show you some additional resources that I think are important on our elections website.
So while you're looking for that, Casey, so just a reminder that this entire presentation is in the chat. If people want to go find it tonight and link to it, you can do that. Otherwise, it will be on our website at kingfield.org. Tomorrow, it'll be on the YouTube station. It'll probably be put on Facebook and you can get the links from there. And I'll include the extra links from the chat that Casey's providing right now.
Thank you, Sarah. Did I successfully share my website?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm sorry. So if you notice, hopefully you can see this up in the top. You can either search through the city's website or our direct URL to the elections, because I want it short, is vote.minneapolismn.gov. That'll take you directly to this page, which is the city's elections and voter services page, as you can see right here. And so if you go to this page, vote.minneapolismn.gov, this tab right here, which says voters, is where we post everything for voters. I want to draw your attention to this drop down, what's on the ballot. I'm going to walk you through resources here that are available now under what's on the ballot. If you click on that link, here's your what's on the ballot page. Here's where you can get your sample ballot. I can't say this enough. See this first big blue box? This is where you can get your sample ballot. Not there yet, but that's where you go next week and get your sample ballot, excuse me. Beneath the sample ballot, you'll see it lists what offices you can expect to see on the ballot this year. Mayor, City Council, Board of Estimate and Taxation, Minneapolis Park Board. Here's a hint. State law says that I cannot promote candidates, and they think that if I post the website for a candidate, that's promotion. So a few years ago, I figured out a loophole. And if you notice right here, this blue link that says, see who has filed for office. If you click on this, it's going to take you to the candidate filings. This is not illegal yet. And so for each of the offices that are listed here, you'll see the name of the people, and under each office, again, another link. See the link? See the affidavits for mayor. If you go here, and I'm just going to really, I don't have a lot of time to go through all, but you can see there's for every office. If you just keep scrolling, you're going to find the office you want. So I'm going to go to Ward 12 because that's where I'm at now. So under, you'll see the people who filed. You'll see a blue link for each one. If you click that link, it's going to open up and you're going to find each of their names. This is, and since he's my boss, I'll click that one. Here's his affidavit. Most of them have a web address that they put in, right? He did not. Let me back out then. But most of them put like a web address, and that's how you can go find out more information about that candidate, right? So nancyfordmn.com. So I'm sharing with you. I'm not promoting any candidate. This is not me promoting a candidate. It's me telling you I'm doing tricky ways to make sure you, the voters, can find access to the candidates using public data, which is their affidavit. So I encourage you all to make use of that for the candidates. And in addition, we've done the same thing for the 3 ballot questions. So if you scroll down, here's that main page, what's on your ballot. Here are the candidates, offices on the ballot, questions on the ballot. You'll see we put the language of the 3 questions. I read it to you. It's exactly verbatim the same, including we've already updated the public safety one from yesterday. At the bottom, you'll see another link. See the proposed changes in the actual charter. So if you click here, you'll see there's a little note to tell you what we're doing. And then for each one of these, it shows you exactly what the amendment would do if adopted in our Constitution. I'm going to start with rent control. So if you click here, it's going to open up. This is a plain text version of the city charter. You can see here under 4.1. Remember I said Article 4 was about the city council. So we are under city council. Here's all the powers of the city council. And you see this piece right here where it's all underlined because it doesn't exist today. That is literally the language that would be added into the charter if voters were to adopt question number 3. So you can feel comfortable. I know what it would do. I'm going to quickly, without comment, show the others because I want to get to the other piece. Here's public safety. This one is in multiple articles and sections. And so you can see the strike throughs here. Police department is removed. Department of Public Safety is added. All of 7.3 as it exists today is removed. A new section 0.73 is added. And then there's minor changes beyond that. But that's what would happen if the amendment were adopted. Same thing with government structure. Here is the charter. This one has the most changes in the most areas. And so you'd have to scroll through to see the strikes and the adds throughout the whole thing. But it's all there. It's all public information, public data. I encourage you to make use of this website and send this link out to everyone you know. And then the last thing I want to promote is at the very bottom of this page, beneath those ballot questions, very important information. Common questions about ballot questions. These 3 pieces are very important, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. Although we refer to our city charter as our Constitution, there is a difference in the way charter amendments voted on by voters are processed than there is amendments put to voters for the state constitution. We refer to both of these as constitutions, but the voting requirements and the processes and how they're tabulated are night and day different. I want you to go back in 2012 in your mind, if you can, if you were here like me. My first presidential was terrible and awful. And we had 2 constitutional amendments at the state level: marriage equality and voter ID. When you have state constitutional amendments on the ballot, if you don't mark yes or no on your ballot, you leave that question blank, it counts as a no. And that's because the legal thinking behind government is government should not change unless the citizenry proactively force it to. So government defaults to status quo. It doesn't change unless forced. That's just a legal principle. With our state constitution, that's how they operate. If you don't vote, your non-vote ballot counts as a no. So it counts against the question. That is not true for charter amendments. So with charter amendments, what they do is if you don't mark your ballot is not counted. It's counted as an abstention. It is thrown out. The first thing we do on each of these three questions is we look to see if there's a yes or a no. We put all the yeses together. We put all the no's together. Those that don't have an answer get thrown out. They're not counted. Then here's a unique twist. We only count those that have a yes or a no. And the state says it's not 50% plus one. You know, that's the typical, right? 50% plus one is first past the post. The statutes say it's a 51%, not 50 plus one, a higher threshold, 51%. But we only count ballots that are marked yes or no. All of the information I just explained to you are listed here. And we've provided the links to the statutes so you can look it up yourself. So for city charter amendments, only yes or no votes are counted. If you choose to leave your question blank, it will not be counted. Here's the statute for more information. How many votes are required? 51%, not 50 plus one, 51. And here's the statute that says that. How are charter amendments brought forward and put on the ballot? Well, it can be by ballot question, by ordinance, and you can learn more about amending the charter and the process, including another visual diagram that I created. So go check it out and give me a thumbs up. That completes everything I have to say tonight. I'm happy to answer questions. I hope, and I'll say this again, I hope before I leave, but if not, I hope that the information I provided to you was helpful. I hope you found it informative. I hope that you will take advantage of these resources, not just my PowerPoint, but especially this website. And I hope that you'll share these with your friends and family and neighbors, and that you, as the Kingfield neighborhood and important, voters and residents of the city, will engage in conversations to make sure, as the chief elections official, I want the most informed voters to be at the polls. I know we all share a goal of having informed voters. So hopefully I've helped you with that, and you can then carry that message forward. So I'm done. I'll be quiet. Happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Well, great. No, thank you. Well, speaking for me, I will say that was a very informative and complete presentation. So thank you. It was, I think, as I mentioned earlier, this has been I think things that people have a lot of questions on. And so, getting more information out there is incredibly valuable. So we do have, I believe looks like we have about 4 questions in the chat. If folks are okay with me reading them, I think that might be the best way to do that. And then I would say continue to put those questions in there if you do have them. So I'll just go ahead and read the first question that we have. The current organization chart with the 10 charter departments, the 10 charter departments indicates that the police department reports to both the mayor and the city council. The city council has been claiming that they currently have no authority over the police department. Is that correct?
So that is, as with most things, it is true and it's not true. The mayor and the council share responsibility for appointing the chief of police. The mayor and the city council share responsibility for the budget of the police department. The mayor and the council together do have the ability to set policy for the Minneapolis Police Department. The difference here is that the charter uses this very strange language, and it has from the very beginning. In fact, before our charter was put together in 1920, the pre-charter language reflected this. It said that the mayor has this exclusive control over the operations, but that's really the day-to-day operations. What it requires is, remember I talked about shared powers. For example, the mayor and the council together created the police body cam policies. The mayor and the council together both created a policy that said PD will not involve itself in immigrant issues and things like that. So those were policies that the mayor and the council came together. I think of it this way, and perhaps this is a helpful frame. And I hate to use this title. I wish I had a different one, but it's the one that came to me when I first came here. And since I've got 12 years in, I think of the mayor as wearing two hats. The mayor wears the hat of mayor, and the mayor wears a unique and different, and it's an independent hat as commissioner of the police department, which is a position they have like in New York. They have the commissioner of public safety. So the mayor is elected to be the commissioner of public safety, and the chief of police reports to the mayor for day-to-day operations, for day-to-day direction. What that means is if the council wants to create policy for that department that reports to an independent elected official, the mayor, they have to work with the mayor. They can't just dictate that policy because the mayor can say no. It's not dissimilar from the Board of County Commissioners, who is an elected policy board, and an elected sheriff. The board can't tell the sheriff what to do. They can set his budget. They can provide city, county-wide policies. Our council has that same authority and same relationship to the mayor and police department that the Board of County Commissioners would have with an elected sheriff. So no, the council does not have day-to-day direct oversight, and they can't call up the police chief and tell him what to do, but working in partnership with the mayor, they can set policies. It's just a little bit more complicated than it is with the other 20 departments.
Second question, the public safety amendment had a flow chart showing the line of power if the strong mayor amendment does not pass. If they both pass, who oversees the public safety department and who approves the head of that department?
Big disclaimers, warning, red letters, 16-point font. Although I jokingly tell people I impersonate an attorney, I have to be very clear, I'm not an attorney. I've been a city clerk, I've been a clerk in government for going on 26 years. I'm not an attorney, but I am the son of an elected official, the grandson of an elected official. I've spent my career in government. So I think I know a little bit about it. This is my opinion. This is not an opinion expressed by our city attorney, which is something we're all waiting for. And that is this: what happens if they both pass? I think, in my understanding of the charter, that if they both pass, they are reconcilable, meaning it's possible that they could both pass and they don't cancel each other out. Here's how. One is very specific, and if you've been around the law, you know that the law says the more specific, the narrower, the more precise takes precedence over the more general, the larger. So you'd start with the premise that the question on public safety is much more precise. It only affects 2 sections of the charter, whereas government structure affects multiple articles. So you start by saying, okay, the voter's intention, if we have to distill that, was to say, we want the police department removed. We want it replaced with the public safety department with the commissioner at the head. We want it to provide its public safety functions through the lens of a comprehensive public health approach. Fine, we make that change. Then we say, but this question also passed. That provides a higher level framework. And now what you've done is, when I said on the org chart, I just struck out police and put in public safety. Well, that's what we do first. And then we take all 10 of those departments and move them under the mayor. But remember, with the government structure, the appointment of that new department head is still the same. It's the mayor would bring forward the nomination, the council would consent to it. If the council didn't consent, the mayor has to bring forward a new nomination. The mayor proposes the budget, the council disposes it. Council always retains final power of the purse. But the change, which I think this gets to the first question, is that it would open up the mayor and the council to having a shared policy oversight of that new public safety department. So it would achieve, I think, a goal expressed by advocates. Again, not trying to take sides, but if the goal is to say that that new box on the org chart called public safety would be under the policy-making oversight of both our executive and legislative branches, this, I think, would achieve that. It would just say the mayor would still be in charge of the day-to-day, now not just over police, but over all 10, and the mayor and the council would have policy-making authority over all 10. Again, that's a personal opinion. We'll see how right I am in 55 days.
Thanks. Third question, does the mayor currently have exclusive power over establishment, maintenance, and command of the police department? If so, why isn't this change enumerated in the major elements of the proposed change?
Yes, the plain language of the charter, which I have on the floor here at my apartment, but I'm not going to try and find it. There is this unique language in our charter that says the mayor has the exclusive language that you use, Chris, command, establishment, command, control, wording. However, there is in my opinion, again, a conflict in the language of the charter, because right before it specifies that, which is in section 7.3, in section 7.2, where it creates and lists our charter departments, it says that the council by ordinance shall provide for the following departments. And number 11 is police. So the council must provide for a police department. Then in 7.3, the next section, it says the mayor has complete power over it. See, that's why I say it's not a clear black and white that the mayor, that the council has no oversight of the police department. They do. It's just that they actually have to work harder with the mayor to get policy in place for the police department than they do with the other 19 departments.
Fourth question, where can we find details about the details of question 2? For example, if peace officers form part of the Department of Public Safety, how is the police union treated? What is the timeline for establishing procedures for a new department, etc.?
I can't answer any of those questions, and I'll be upfront about that. And then I'm going to come back and tag it with what I can say, because all of that's unknown. I mean, that question presupposes that I can predict the outcome of the vote, right? And as we've been very clear, we can't create a new department unless the voters say yes. I mean, we could try, but that's putting the cart before the horse. So to be very plain about this, if the voters approve this question on public safety, regardless of the other two, we have a very narrow window of time for implementation. The fact of the matter is that under state law, if you do not provide an effective date within the ballot that's later, by default, they become effective 30 days after the date of the election. So that's December 3rd. Now, we won't really know everything. I mean, ballot questions don't have to be tabulated using ranked choice voting, thank God. So we should know the results of the ballot questions on election night, but I won't be done tabulating the entire election because of ranked choice voting. I'm hoping to have that done and have the municipal canvassing board, which is the city council, who confirms and makes the official results. On the following Friday, November 12th, we've got them tentatively scheduled to canvass and certify the results. Once we canvass the results and make them official, that opens up a 7-day contest period where anyone can bring forward a contest to any results on the ballot. That doesn't end until November 22nd, which means nothing is official until November 22nd. It's all unofficial until then. Nevertheless, it doesn't start the 30 days then. If it's approved, you backtrack to the date of the election and then count out 30 days. And the way that the statutory construction says you count days, the day of the election isn't day one. The day after is day one. So the election's on November 2nd. Day one is November 3rd. 30 days puts me at December 3rd. That means we have to be ready to implement on December 3rd. If the government structure passes, December 3rd. If public safety passes, December 3rd. If rent stabilization passes, December 3rd. Now, to be completely transparent and honest with all of you good people, there is no way, none, that we, the city, can have any of these plans implemented in 30 days. That is an unrealistic expectation. So what has to happen is a transition plan. There are a minimum number of steps that the mayor and the council would have to take in order to demonstrate progress against voter intent. And before I explain what I think those minimum steps are, let me also remind you that the mayor and council are also on the ballot at the same time as these questions. So it would be unfair for us to expect them to do anything, because after this becomes effective, they literally have, I think, 17 days left in office. And it takes, on the best of days, to do an ordinance. If all the stars were aligned, the planets were in perfect symmetry, there were no clouds in the sky, and we were all millionaires, it takes a minimum of 2 months to get an ordinance through. That cannot be done before this term ends. So for public safety, and there's a group of staff who are working right now to put together timelines, necessary steps, procedures that would have to be done. At a minimum, if the public safety amendment passes before December 3rd, the mayor and the council would have to do the following two things. One, they need to appoint an interim commissioner of public safety, because that's the new head of public safety, effective December 3rd. There is no time, those of you who work in the real world outside of government, we move slower than the real world. And there's no way we could do a full recruitment, right? We haven't even graded the position. We don't know what grade it would be, what salary, what requirements for the job. We wouldn't be able to do recruitment in 30 days. So they're gonna have to designate someone as an interim. The second thing they're gonna have to do is by ordinance say that effective on this date, all law enforcement functions previously provided by the police department shall be under the authority of this person, the interim public safety commissioner. And that buys the city time for the new mayor and the council to come in and say, okay, we have this new box that voters gave us called public safety. We now need to develop a plan to say, what do we want to put in that box? If it is truly voters' intent to consolidate public safety functions, is that more than police? Is it just a name change from police to public safety? Or is the mayor and the council going to be broader than that and say, let's put police and fire and emergency management and 911 and Office of Violence Prevention and maybe some of the crime prevention specialists that got moved over to neighborhood and community relations, and maybe some of the city attorney's functions related to crime and crime prevention and public safety. Maybe all of that becomes this new department. I don't know. The reality is no one knows. And it's unfair for anyone right now. In my opinion, I am outside of my neutral zone. But in fairness to the mayor, the council, and to all of you as voters, it would be unfair for any of us to try to predict what that box called public safety would include. But there are necessary steps, minimum steps that the city would have to do in order to put in place a solid transition plan and then punt to the next group of elected officials.
Great, thanks. We got a couple more questions, and I think you touched on this a little bit since this one was asked, but where can I find the difference between public safety and the police department? What happens to MPD if they are removed from the charter?
So we don't have a public safety department per se right now. We do have a police department that's both in the charter and in our codes. The difficulty is several years ago, when we moved to a plain language charter, much of the ordinances in our code, which is like our statutes, are mirror words of our charter. So if you were to go look at our code of ordinances today under police, it kind of reads the same. And so I know people have said, oh, if the charter, if we remove the police department from the charter, we still have the code. I don't think that's a good argument. Here's why. Because the language of our code says literally this: there shall be a police department. It shall be headed by a police chief who shall report exclusively to the mayor. We just eliminated that from the charter. We can't leave that in the code. It would be in direct conflict with voter intent. So that's why I said the plan should be to say there's a new public safety commissioner, even on an interim basis, and law enforcement functions previously provided by police would be moved under that new interim commissioner's authority, pending the future ordinance to create that department. If the ballot question passes, then all reference to police, which is primarily in section 7.3, but there are a few places here and there that deal with the police chief, the appointment term, how they can be removed, things like that. Those would all be gone, and they wouldn't be in the charter anymore. I think in terms of carrying forward voter intent, it would be the mayor and council's requirement to go into both the charter and the code. Not the charter so much, because remember that language I showed you would be in the charter, it'd be done. This is what the voters said put in. It would be their job to take that language and rewrite the current code provisions that say police to say public safety.
A quick question. It says, to clarify, the 51% threshold for passage is the total of votes cast yes, plus those cast no, disregarding blank responses on ballots cast.
Correct.
Okay. And then the final question that we have right now is it says, so are you saying that the old council and the mayor would place the head of public safety on December 3rd? So I guess it's asking the old council, not the newly elected council.
Right. So in order to meet that deadline for transition, which becomes effective December 3rd, the current mayor and the current council who are currently in place would need to take those actions. Remember, their terms go clear up to midnight on December 31st. Actually, January 1st because it's a weekend. The new terms begin January 2nd. So they are still the elected officials, but they're not going to have enough time to get a whole ordinance, in the public hearing process. So the minimum they need to do is create that interim commissioner and move the public safety functions under that person's purview. That person would immediately start reporting to both the mayor and the council. And then this mayor and council would punt, if you will, to the next group who would be sworn in on January 3rd, the duty of filling out that department. So I want to sort of give assurance that the city, I've heard this said that if this question passes, the city immediately by December 3rd loses police. That's not true. That there would not be law enforcement in the city. That's not true. It is true, however, and if you're an attorney, this is a fun game to play. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I play these games with them often. There's a difference between the legal world, which is on paper, and the real world that we live in. And this is a perfect example of what that would do. Because on paper, we would not have a police department. We would not have a police chief. We would not have those law enforcement functions in the legal world of paper. But the fact of the matter is we have a contract with a union. We have employees who currently are police officers who wear uniforms, who are licensed by the post board at the state level, right? And they are required. State law requires that police officers perform certain functions, and only police officers. So the city cannot get out of that. So in the real world we live in, those things would still be happening, even though the paper world is different. We're going to be in sort of a gray area called purgatory for a while. But that's why it's really important for the council and mayor to designate an interim commissioner. That's the most important thing, and to give that person authority over the public safety functions so that you do have continuity of government until that final decision-making process is done. I think that's a very important piece to share with the public. Yes, it does remove from the charter a department that currently exists. It would be up to the new elected officials to decide how to design and incorporate that new department. And it is true that the new mayor and council could say the city is not going to have police officers on city payroll, right? To be clear, there is no statutory law that requires cities to have police officers, none. There is a statute that says certain functions must be done by licensed peace officers. We could get by contracting with Hennepin County Sheriff, who is a law enforcement officer elected by the people, and they could provide law enforcement functions for the city under contract. So really what it does is it opens up the door to, and I hate to use this term because it's been criticized, and rightfully so, but it does open the door to say, what is public safety in the future? And that's a question for residents, constituents, voters, and their elected officials. It won't be a question for the current group to make. It'll be started by voters in November. And if it passes, then those voters and constituents carry forward with their new group of elected officials to make those decisions in the next term.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I think that is the end of the questions that we have. I want to make sure everybody is aware. Sarah put into the chat, we do have a 3-amendment forum on October 16th with advocacy groups speaking from both sides. So if you're watching this on the recording after the fact, we will include that link there. You will also be able to easily find it on our website, kingfield.org. I also will say, as kind of looking at this from a board perspective, there is interest in, I know from board members, in discussing all 3 of these amendments further and possibly taking a stance as a board and voting on a stance. And that looks like it will happen at our October meeting. So I'm sure in between now and our October meeting, there will be additional information coming out. So please look for that information, and also look for the agenda on that. I also would just say for folks, residents who are here, and also folks who are watching this recording, please know that the board is going to be discussing these. And if you would like to provide input to board members' contact information is on the website. Also, everyone is here, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm sure folks would like to hear from people on how specific how residents feel about these 3 amendments. So we want to have a robust conversation. We also, as a board, know that all of these 3 amendments impact our neighborhood and impact the city greatly, and so we want to discuss them. That doesn't mean necessarily that KFNA will, the board specifically, will take a stance, may or may not, but we will be having that discussion, and a stance is a possibility coming out of the October meeting. Those were all the things that I had to say. Sarah, did I miss anything at the closing of this?
No, someone just asked the event on the 16th. We're still nailing down the time. Josh, are we for sure at 10 a.m.?
It is 10 a.m. We did
Okay.
finalize the time. Yeah.
So we are asking people to register either to watch it live. There'll be COVID precautions in place, so about room for 100 at Mayflower Church, but also to register to watch it virtually so we can make sure that we have a large enough platform for everyone who would want to watch it directly. And also you need to register if you want to submit questions in advance, which is the only way that you can ask questions.
Great. Okay.
Chris and Sarah, I want to thank you for inviting me, and have a good night to everybody else. I'll get out of your hair because I know you have other business. So
Yeah,
thank you and good
thanks,
night.
Casey.
Thank you so much. So I'll quickly just say to folks who are still on, we are going to now move into kind of the more typical board meeting section of our agenda. So if folks want to, residents that are still on, you're more than welcome to stay. You're more than welcome to hear how a board meeting kind of goes. I believe if our agenda, if somebody could throw that back in the chat, just for folks who maybe came in a little bit later, that would be greatly appreciated. We're going to be kind of discussing kind of some new things, kind of future for this year, and do some committee in the short time we have left. So if you'd like to stay on, please do so. We're happy you're here, but feel free to jump off if you would like to do that as well. So great. Cool. Any, I guess I'll open this maybe up to the board just really quickly. Any specific comments that board members would like to make coming out of that specific agenda item that we had, or any of the things that I said both before and after it? Cool. Great. I'm gonna put BJ on the spot here.
Chris, do you want to do community forum before that?
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I will, that's really great. We will open it up for a community forum. As I always say, we're all community members, so feel free for anyone to share anything that they would like here. For those who are in the community or from not on the board, every board meeting we have a community forum section where members from the community can share input, things, anything they would like to the board. So I will open up the floor. If there's anyone who would like to share anything, now would be the time to do it. Seeing none, I will now, thank you, BJ. I will now put BJ back on the spot if you're ready for that. In terms of kind of the next agenda item, we had result to the board survey that was sent out to folks. So
yep.
BJ, if you're okay.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you everyone for filling out the check-in survey on the board. We actually had 100% of the board fill it out. So thank you very much. What we found is that people do want some sort of training, some sort of get together, I should say. And 38% would like something outdoors with masks on. So with that information, we will be moving forward with an in-person event with masks on outside. And 61% of the board said they wanted this get together to be social, not to be a training or not to be a combination of social and training. Yeah. So those are the, Sarah, you're excited about that?
Yes.
So we will move forward with that. The other two questions we'll bring up in future board meetings. There were some things that board members wish they knew more about or wish to hear a little bit more about. Since we just got the final results today from the board, we are not in a point to present kind of what these questions are. We'll bring it to the executive committee, and it will be in a future board meeting. I'm guessing it will probably be October. It doesn't look like it's too much to work through, so I think that we can get that done in an executive committee and have some answers by the October board meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, BJ. So yeah, so I would just say everybody look for that. Looking forward. I've seen some of you in person over the last couple months and looking forward to seeing more people, which is awesome. So with that item, I guess I'll open it up. Are there any questions specifically about the survey or kind of plans to get together to meet to see people in person? Seeing none, I will move it on to the next agenda item since we're a little bit behind. One that I think a lot of us have been very excited about, and I know for Sarah is a long time coming. So I will kick it over to Sarah to talk about new staff introductions.
Yay. Yeah, I'm super excited for a social, in part because we are welcoming Kenzie Imhoff to the Kingfield Neighborhood Association. So Kenzie, if you want to wave, thank you. Today's Kenzie's first day. She started at 10 a.m. This morning. So she's pulling a typical organizer day right now. And she comes to us from outside of Madison, where she grew up, and then from the University of Vermont. I gave you guys a little bit of a bio on her in the email that I sent to the board. But Kenzie, if you want to jump in and share anything, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have accepted this position. And yeah, the first day has already been a whirlwind, but so great. And I'm so excited. I feel like I just learned so much in that presentation, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and getting to know the neighborhoods. As it said in my bio, I just graduated from the University of Vermont, where I studied sociology with a concentration in crime and criminal justice, and also Spanish. And I've worked with a variety of different nonprofits in the past, such as a Peace and Justice Center in Burlington, a halfway house in Burlington. I worked for an attorney this past year, and a few other organizations, but never specifically a neighborhood association. So I'm really looking forward to this new experience, and yeah, connecting with you all virtually and hopefully in person too.
Great. Thanks, Kenzie. And so my goal is to get Kenzie on the ground as quickly as possible. She will be helping to support specific projects in the neighborhood. So I will be working to connect her with the strategic planning group, getting an overview of the community visioning survey, doing some of the outreach with those of you who are scheduled at the farmers market, setting some door knocking dates while it's still beautiful out this month, and getting some of you to join her in that. The election education team just pulled together a list of rental properties, so we have a place to start. And then she'll also be supporting the work of the charter amendment group. So it was great that you could be here tonight, Kenzie. Thanks for making the time on this long first day. And then, am I next on the agenda too, Chris? Can I keep going or not?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll just open it up for folks to maybe ask questions, or if there's anyone, I think, Kenzie being here, like we've talked a lot about what this board and what this organization could accomplish with additional resources, especially staff resources. And so I know, this probably isn't the time and place to talk about details of those things, and Sarah just laid out some of them, but I think, there's going to be a lot of opportunity and a lot of excitement to engage you in a lot of the work that some of our committees are doing, and you'll hear some of those updates here. So I guess I would just like to open it up to the board. Are there any comments, questions, anything like that about that anyone would like to present to Kenzie, or even just kind of make more generally right now? Anybody? Okay. So Sarah, I'll kick it over to you. Next one.
Cool. So this sort of ties a little bit into the work that Kenzie will be doing. So there's a couple of things in your board packet, and I know that it's been coming pretty late. I just want to mention that there is a packet or a folder of new policies, and there is a packet of recommendations for revising policies. So this all relates to the new funding stream that the city is calling the Neighborhood Network Fund. Basically, it's the administration fund. And there's 4 pages of requirements for the neighborhood to receive their admin allocation through the city. I'm just going to remind the board that that allocation next year is $15,000. The year after, it's $10,000. And which is in part why I'm super happy for a social engagement instead of a policy related conversation. So I am going to ask, I'm happy to keep plugging through these documents, but I would ask that the board take the time to review these. Most of them are very straightforward. They're written by a lawyer. The ones that we're reviewing by our nonprofit lawyer, Jess Birkin. If you could review them by September 17th, which is next Friday, and let me know if there are questions on any of them. I'm happy to pull together a discussion group on Zoom about any of the policies, but most of them I think you'll find are pretty straightforward. Some of the ones that I'm looking for modifications on, like our ADA policy and our equal employment opportunity, those sort of were tucked into other policies. And so it's a way to separate them out and bring more highlight to them rather than burying them in a personnel policy. So they're the more minor pieces of the policy work that we need to do. There's a few more major pieces we can do farther down the road. So again, the deadline for you to look at those and review those is September 17th to let me know if you want to have further conversations. I would like the board to be able to vote on those in October so they can be included in the packet to the city on October 15th. The board vote is the 13th. Are there questions on policies?
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question. So are you asking us to review the document that says new policies required by Minneapolis? I can add it in the chat here just so I'm absolutely clear. Is it this one right here?
It's both. So the new policies are policies that KFNA has never had, but we are required to have. These were all drafted by the nonprofit lawyer. The ones that I think the other one is labeled, Sarah, if you're in there, it's like amend these policies or something is a folder. You in there?
Okay, yeah, is it the KFNA policies that need updating ADA, EEO,
Yeah.
grievance?
So
Okay.
there should be our former version, if we had one, or where it was tucked, and the new language that I'm recommending just because it's cleaner. So 2 folders of documents. So if people want to take a look and let me know if you want to discuss those. If I don't hear anything by the 17th, I'm going to just put together this packet as is and say I recommend the passing of these policies at the October board meeting.
Sarah, can you talk a little bit about how this relates to like the bylaw changes that we just made, and like maybe even what the difference between bylaws and policy are? Because a lot of the bylaw changes that we just made were also at the recommendation of the city to comply with city requirements, correct?
Yes, so the city had some requirements to bylaws, and then we also took the opportunity to kind of clean up our bylaws and all understand them better. The city had very specific, thanks, David, had very specific requirements such as the length of term that people can serve, and the way that you could nominate people at a meeting and how voting had to happen as a requirement in the bylaws. So some of those were forced by the city. The others were just an opportunity for us to better understand the structure of the organization and stop referring back to archaic bylaws. So, and the policies are how, maybe David wants to jump in here. The bylaws are like the rules of how we operate, and the policies relate to that, but a lot of these are like state mandated.
Okay.
So I'm going to continue on. So there's two things that I do need the board to vote on today. One is related to a funding update. KFNA and LNA were awarded the collaborative funding grant that we applied for that will support Kenzie's position. It's a $15,000 grant. The board, both boards approved the application going to the city for this funding, but according to financial policies, this board needs to vote to accept those funds. Just to repeat, those funds fully support Kenzie's position. So that's one item that I would like the board to vote on. And the second one is there is a employee share agreement in there between KFNA and LNA that is sort of the how Kenzie's position will function between two organizations. And so with the difference in allotment of equitable engagement dollars, Kenzie will work 15 hours a week for KFNA and the remainder of that 40-hour week for LNA. And the employee share agreement explains that relationship. And it's basically the reverse agreement that I'm currently serving for LNA with. And so there's a dollar allotment in there. The time period of this is until December, at which point there will be a resetting of this contract with LNA at the same time that my contract is reset.
Okay, I guess I'll maybe open it up for discussion on both kind of the initial stuff that Sarah was talking about and those two items. Are there any questions on either of those items or comments? Okay. I guess can I?
Oh,
Sarah,
sorry. So the first vote is to accept the money. The second vote is to approve this cost share agreement. Is the cost share agreement the same template that was used or that is being used for your share position, Sarah?
Exactly. And so if you look at it, there's words highlighted in green that will not
Yep.
stay in green, but literally wherever it said Kingfield, I flipped the words and put Lindale, and wherever it said Lindale, I flipped the words and it said Kingfield. And then the position title was adjusted. So this was originally an employee share agreement that was created for us by Jess Birkin. David has proofed it. David, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, it's the same agreement. And the only thing that's, I guess, substantively different would be the scope of work for Kenzie, but that's just the schedule. It's just basically her job description. But yeah, I've reviewed it and I'm comfortable with it. I'll be voting to support it.
Any other additional comments or questions on that? If there's none, maybe I'd like to ask for a vote to on the first question that Sarah brought, which was accepting the grant dollars from the city.
I'll make the motion that we accept the grant dollars from the city for the employment of Kenzie.
Thanks, Todd. Second. We'll now move into discussion. Okay, all in favor? Aye, thumbs up. Yes in the chat. No, well, I guess no's and abstentions. That passes. And I guess I'll make I ask for another motion to approve the employee share agreement that is found in your board packet.
I'll make that motion to approve the employee share agreement with LA.
Great. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed and abstentions. That passes. So if it wasn't official before, now it's more official. I don't know. So welcome, Kenzie. We're very excited to have you here. Sarah, anything else from you on this specific agenda item?
No.
Okay, great. Maybe for the first time ever, we might end early because we weren't sure how long our our forum was going to go. This would be this, especially in my tenure, this would be a first ever. So we'll now jump to committee and work group updates and new staff engagement. Why I wanted to put new staff engagement in there is I think it's really valuable for our committees, who are really kind of the working engines of the board, to both share what we're doing, what they have done, what we are doing, and then how they see engaging in the future, or what they're planning on doing, and how they would see engaging, Kenzie, in that understanding, as Sarah laid out, that with that employee share agreement, 15 hours isn't a ton of time, but we're very excited to be able to have someone to do especially some of the ground level work that we would like to be able to do in the neighborhood. So I will maybe kick it off, and then I will move this to other folks just really quickly with redevelopment. The only I would say big, but the only update that we have, redevelopment has been approached by a developer, a proposed developer in the neighborhood a developer actually in the Lindale neighborhood. And so the Lindale and KFNA redevelopment committees will be meeting with that developer, and then we'll be having a public meeting if the developer decides to continue to pursue that development. So just a notification to all board members that they are welcome at our redevelopment committee meetings. And if you I changed my page. Sarah, do we have a date on that redevelopment committee meeting yet? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
It's next Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Zoom. If anyone wants a link, let me know. Yeah.
And I will just say that this is typically how we've been working through these processes, is meeting with reading with proposed developers in the neighborhood as an initial step with the redevelopment committee, and now a joint redevelopment committee, and then holding a public meeting where neighbors come, ask questions, provide input. So we haven't scheduled that yet. We don't know if this is actually a development that's going to continue on, but please look for that as well. So that is redevelopment's update. The next item, which was very heavily featured in today's meeting, election education. Can I kick that over to you, Josh? Is that okay?
Sure. So I've been leading the charter education team, which involves not only us, but some representatives from a lot of other Southwest neighborhoods. As we mentioned earlier, there will be a forum featuring speakers for and against each of the 3 charter amendments. That will be Saturday, October 16th at 10 a.m. at Mayflower Church. If people want to attend in person, they should definitely register in advance, because we will have limited seating to allow for social distancing. We will also live stream the event and have the recording available afterward. While I'm not personally involved in it, I know there are also other people working on a District 6 Park Board forum. That is Tuesday, September 28th at 7 p.m. That I believe is at Mount Olivet Church, and similarly that has limited in-person seating and then is also streamed online and recording available afterwards. Am I forgetting anything, Sarah, or does that cover it?
Just as a heads up, the page 2 of the agenda has details on these meetings. So
And I would just advocate for board members. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on, especially in the next couple of months, to continue to like share this with neighbors, push this information out. I think sometimes people are sick of hearing from me, so I would very much encourage folks, send in some stuff out both to their network and to kind of the broader network in the neighborhood. So if we're good with election education, move on to strategic planning. I think Katie, maybe you volunteered to give this update.
Our current and ongoing main work on strategic planning has been the neighborhood survey. As of this moment, we have about 135 responses to the survey. Shout out to any board members who have been able to go to the farmers market thus far to do some outreach there. And I will put the sign up in the chat. Just as a quick reminder, the process for doing it at the farmers market is that we're having everybody sign up, ideally in buddies. This is an opportunity to also meet another board member, and the invitation is just that you be in touch with your board buddy and decide at least an hour that you want to go together to the farmers market. The materials for doing the survey are on Brighton's porch. The address is in the sign up. 2 options: a QR code so that people can actually just scan that into their phone and do the survey on their phone, or there's a paper version to have people fill that out and then we can do the data entry. There's also koozies you can give to people if they fill out the survey, or t-shirts which you can sell to them at a discount if they fill out the survey. And we will be very excited to connect with you, Mackenzie. A huge goal that we had and how we launched the survey was to have it be as representative of the residents of the neighborhood as possible. I think a next step we'll want to do is start to assess in the information that people shared about who they are, how that compares to what we know about the neighborhood in terms of race, age, and renter versus home ownership is, I think, the things we most named. Our goal is to get to at least 400 and some folks filling it out representatively, because that would be, I think that would land us at 5% of the neighborhood, which was a goal. We've already reached the amount of people who filled out the last neighborhood survey, I think a couple of years ago that KFNA did, which is great, but we really had this goal about getting a representative response, because that's important, because that's our values, but also because it's like so specifically going to inform some mission and vision, like articulating that we need to do as a board. So please sign up to go to the farmers market, get psyched to meet another board member, and just a final reminder to just share the link and spread the word about the survey on your block or etc.
Thanks, Katie. And Alice, I don't want to put you on the spot, but could you just like quickly share, because Alice and I were at the farmers market. Do you want to quickly share like how it went talking with folks? And
yeah, I was going to do this during my update part later, but so maybe I'll just jump ahead. But and it was really interesting thing to do. I was really surprised at a couple things. One, how many people come from outside of Kingfield to the farmers market. I think it's well over half. I think, Chris, you and I thought it might be as high as 80%. I mean, it's really a lot of people come from everywhere, which is an opportunity maybe as well to engage more people with Kingfield and what we do here in Kingfield. People seem to feel very good about Kingfield as a neighborhood. But some of the most interesting conversations I had with people were people from outside the neighborhood as well, who lived in, say, the Bryant neighborhood. Because I think there maybe are a lot of similarities with some of the people that we would like to get more engaged. So specifically, there was one individual who was very concerned about gentrification, which she saw as a big problem there. And I think, that's another way of talking about affordable housing. So I shared with her that, yes, indeed, this is a big issue. But unfortunately, she's learned that there actually isn't much help that can come through the neighborhoods to help individuals with keeping up their houses and things, whether there may have been some funding for that later, but in earlier times. So anyways, a very interesting thing. You don't necessarily meet as many Kingfield people as you think, but it's still an interesting thing to do.
awesome. Thank you, Alice. I will maybe move on quickly to recruitment. And I know, even talking with recruitment about, maybe I know, Mackenzie's role and maybe some ways that you would see engaging there. So I don't know who I want to kick it over to that, but I will open up the door.
I can talk. So the only update that we have submitted, or I believe, Sarah, tell me if I'm wrong, but we did submit a preliminary engagement plan, like an equitable engagement plan to the city for grant money. That's $8,500 next year and $9,200 in 2023. Question mark beyond that. It's a preliminary engagement plan, and there is going to be a comment period back from the city at the end of this month. And they're going to kind of tell us what they thought about the plan. And then we're going to submit a final equitable engagement fund application in the middle part of next month. So that's really kind of the only thing that we've got in the hopper right now. But certainly willing to talk about different ways to engage with new staff. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And then jumping over finally to fundraising.
I guess I'll jump in here. Since I'm the newly elected chair of this group. We're working on kind of a draft of our plan, and I'm soliciting comment. I wrote kind of an outline of what I thought might work. Alice responded, and I think a couple of my other teammates are there with some feedback, and so from David. And so we'll look at that, kind of redraft it, submit it to Sarah, get her feedback, and bring it to you guys maybe next month, and kind of get a plan in place. You know, overarching is the fact that we need more money to do more stuff, right? And we got to figure out how to raise enough money to support this organization. So I think it'll come to fruition. We're looking at fundraising options, and we'll try to put something together here and bring you something next month.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Any other questions or comments or insights from committee members that they would like to, well, I guess everybody that they would like to share? One question that I had for you, Sarah, since we have like a little bit of time, can you talk a little bit about the 40th Street Bridge opening, which I'm seeing here, and then also the bridging dinner, which I believe now has changed, if you're ready to present that information.
I can present what I know. So yesterday I heard that the bridging dinner was moving forward. Today I heard that it was canceled. So just to remind people who aren't familiar with the event, I believe it was 4 years ago, we did a Breaking Bread Building Bridges dinner on 38th Street Bridge. MnDOT is a partner in that, and so is the 8th Ward. MnDOT actually had money allocated to close the bridge, which is huge. And when I spoke to them today, they said that they heard that it was being canceled due to COVID concerns. If it happens, it is scheduled for Saturday, September 25th, and which is soon, so we should know pretty quickly. I would say also that we've had an event change due to the construction on 40th Street. So we were supposed to have, which I'm super bummed about, the celebration of the opening of 35W, like the big wig celebration in Kingfield on Friday. And instead, because of the construction, they moved it to the 24th Street Bridge. So I think that note is in there. You guys are welcome, you know, to bike on up there if you want to be part of it. It's just not quite as cool if it's not in Kingfield, but, and then I hear that the city is actually planning the official opening of the 40th Street Bridge now that the artwork is in place. And that is on my schedule for sometime on Sunday, October 10th. We're not quite sure who's leading it, if it's the 8th Ward office or the Mary Altman, the art commissioner. But I'm pretty sure that that is the date selected. And so that could be a huge celebration, especially if we can get MnDOT to throw in the money that they were going to use to close the other bridge to add to the party. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Sarah. And with all these things going on, this would be maybe just another time where I would advocate for how we figure out how we do a shared calendar.
Have you looked at the website?
No, is it on there?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So would you
So
yeah.
take a look. We put it up, what day is it? Wednesday. We put it up Monday. So everyone please go to kingfield.org, look at the right-hand side. So it's now like a list of events. And then you can click to look at it in calendar view, and I think you can add it. I haven't tried that.
Oh yeah, you can export events. This is great. Feed me to it.
So
Awesome.
test it out. You know, we can change it if it's not working for people, but
Cool. Okay. So I think that's all we had for that agenda item. Maybe for Mackenzie, I think everyone else is familiar, and for at the end of our board meetings, we kind of do a closeout. Really, it's an opportunity for both board members, staff, and community members to share really updates, input, fun things, not fun things, whatever they would like to share with the board. And so we kind of go through each person, and they share really in under a minute. So it's a good opportunity from everybody, and especially when we're not maybe all seeing each other as much. So I will I didn't create this order, but I don't know if this is the normal order, but Katie, I think you're on top, so I'm going to kick it over to you if that's okay. Sorry.
I'll just share that in my job, it's election season, and I'm getting to have the joy of talking to a ton of Minneapolis neighbors and working with a bunch of other people. And like, we've had quite a year and a half, and people, it's a joy to be able to have conversations about hard stuff with our neighbors in this city. And the other side of that is you're going to get some door knocks this fall and some phone banks, and phone bankers and door knockers are real people and are our neighbors. And so I always love to shout out treating them that way, even if you don't have time to talk, which is fine.
Awesome. Thanks. Becky?
I have some outside of Kingfield news. We took our second kid to school in Boston last week, so that was weird. And hopefully, if nothing else changes for the worse again, I'm leaving next Wednesday for Poland, so that'll be awesome. Other than that, busy at work. That's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky. I am up next. I have a kindergartner, our oldest, starting kindergarten at Barton. So feel incredibly, it's a little shocking. It's also really exciting. And, she's come such a long way from, being shy and quiet and nervous to now being so excited about kindergarten. So we're just very happy for her and very excited that I'm going to be able to bike and walk and pick them up from school, which is really, really cool. So that's kind of the personal. And then I would just reiterating kind of what Alice said, going out into the farmer's market now 2 Sundays ago, and talking with folks. I had a lot of people, I was handing out flyers, asking about surveys, and people would take it, and then they would come back and talk to me for 10 minutes. So I think we found some potential future board members, some people who were going to reach out further, and actually someone that already did. So, I think it just shows the value of getting out there, talking with folks, and especially as board members saying, hey, we're community members too. We want to hear from you about what you care about, and then take action on that. So that was really exciting and awesome. So, and I encourage everybody to continue to do that and sign up. So Alice, you are next on the list.
Well, I shared the Kingfield experience. I guess we're looking forward to someday being able to go travel some more. So we're hoping we can get to Chicago later this month and maybe get to the East Coast, since that looks to be a little more reasonable COVID space than some other places. So we're hopefully we can all get out and do stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Alice. Josh?
I think my Kingfield related stuff is all charter amendments all the time, especially this past week. Other than that, more personal news, my birthday this weekend, so that was exciting break from stuff. I think that's all I've got for now.
I'll also just throw out here, if anyone is on Twitter, Josh is slowly becoming the predominant source of news for all things charter amendments and things happening at the city. So if you want to know exactly what's going on and get very good explainers on what those are, I would encourage following Josh on Twitter. Sorry, Josh.
Josh, you have been retweeted by dozens of my friends now. I just keep seeing you pop up in my Twitter feed.
Yeah, I got a lot bigger very recently.
Next on the list, Brighton.
Hi, Kingfield News. So I'm on 37th Street between Nickel and Blaisdell, and we've had like all of the houses change over in the last 18 months, it feels like. And we finally got to like get outside a little bit more and talk to some of the neighbors. So there's a lot of children and dogs living around us, and we're a childless house. So it's kind of fun and exciting. And it was good to just sort of meet people, because it's always been like, hi, I come meet you and your baby, maybe give you COVID. So it's been nice to get outside a little bit and talk to folks.
Awesome, thanks. L'Oreal.
I guess something exciting in my personal life is that I'm starting a new job on Monday, working for an organization in North Minneapolis that helps find housing for at-risk youth. And specifically, I'll be working with victims of sex trafficking. So it'll go in line with what I'm going to school for, social work, and they also have a juvenile justice program, and I'm going to school for criminal justice. So I'm pretty excited, a little nervous because I'm doing full-time still at school and then at work. So wish me luck.
Awesome, congratulations. David R.
I've just been really enjoying watching people paint their houses this summer. There's like, I think three or four in 2 blocks from my house, and they're all painted these like really bright, vibrant colors. And now it makes me want to paint my house. So there's that. But yeah, no, that's really cool. Beautifying the neighborhood and making the houses look really pretty. It's been enjoyable. And then personally, I'm looking forward to the Friday after next, because that's going to be the end of like this just crazy period in my life where I haven't had a day off and too long. So it's going to be nice to kind of get back to a normal schedule. And yeah, but that's all I got.
Awesome, thanks, David. David S.
I think the only thing more exciting than 35W exits and on-ramps potentially coming or like opening up in the next month and a half is my wedding in a couple weeks. So excited about Kingfield finally having access to the greater world, and then excited for something that's been delayed for 18 months finally coming.
Awesome, thanks, David. Todd.
I'd congratulate David, and excited for him and his fiance. And we, on this side of the world, on this side of Lindale, we're working on a neighborhood event early October to kind of do some educating around the charter amendment and kind of the election cycle. And so we'll do that here. And then Brad and I are headed off for an RV trip of Utah in a week or so. And so we're excited about that. So thanks everybody for all you do. It makes a difference that you guys are all here.
Awesome, thanks, Todd. BJ.
My Kingfield news, the last 2 farmers markets that I've been to, I've now run into 10 of the people that live on my block. So it's nice that people in the neighborhood are going to the farmers market, even though Chris and Alice didn't get to talk to them last week. Non-Kingfield, starting classes again this week for my certificate in election administration. So excited to start school again, begrudgingly, but excited about the content.
Awesome. Thanks, BJ. Sarah T.
Hey everyone, I'll give a little bit of neighborhood school update. Like Chris, I also have a kid starting school this week at Minneapolis Public Schools, also at Barton. So the first day of school at MPS was today. I don't know how many people know that our neighborhood was redistricted for elementary school for this next year. And so last year, kids in the neighborhood went to Lindale as a community school. This year we're at Barton. So that is a shift for a lot of people. And I mean, just the reality of where we're at right now is that this is the third academic year that is impacted by the pandemic. Kids in Minneapolis public schools are required to wear masks, but it's a big endeavor for our unvaccinated kids who are out there now in more social settings again. So I just want to give a huge shout out and all the love to our kids who are, living through this at such a young age, and all of the educators who, from the teachers to the bus drivers to paraprofessionals, the people who are doing before and after care that are working with our kids, I think, and hope I didn't forget anyone, but there's, a lot of people that are doing everything they can to make this work. And the reality is that it's tough. I mean, buses did not show up for kids this morning. There's a bus driver shortage. There has been a bus driver shortage. In Kingfield, we're a little bit closer to the school to be able to probably have a higher population of biking and walking. But there are kids who rely on buses, and we don't have enough bus drivers, and we don't have enough people for before or after school care either. And so we were asked to forego a spot for that or to delay that. So there's a ton of challenges. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that into the space, that's something that is probably on a lot of our neighbors' minds lately. But it's also really joyful to see all of the kids out there. This afternoon, when I was biking my kid home, I saw a huge group of kids from Hiawatha Academies, which is located here in the neighborhood. And I think they must have been walking back from Lindale Farmstead Park to their school at the end of the day. And they were just running down the street and so happy. And it was such a fun thing to see. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I get to see them now every day working at Lindale Farmstead. So it's pretty cool. They've been out there every day. So maybe I'll kick it over to Mackenzie. Would you like to give an update?
Yeah, sure. I guess, so I moved to Minneapolis yesterday. Before that, I was on a 2-month road trip, kind of like a post-grad celebration. So I flew in, and then I feel very fortunate to have found a house on Pillsbury Avenue. I'm still learning exactly where it is. And I'm looking forward to exploring the neighborhood. My brother actually lives 3 blocks away. So that's been fun to see him. And my sister also lives in Minneapolis. So being close to family, and I'm excited to get to know Kingfield and also Lindale.
Awesome. That sounds great. And yeah, we're very happy to have you. Sarah, LR?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Kenzie's actually at the office. So in the city, she doesn't know she has to bike home tonight. So go north. I'm super excited that Kenzie joined us today, and we actually brought in another staff person for Lindale today. So we have a full office and a full team. It's really exciting. I want to let people know that Kenzie's email is organizer@kingfield.org. And she's going to have a lot on her plate. So I would encourage each of you to reach out if you have, 45 minutes free to meet her and take a walk in the neighborhood and show her your favorite place, or go grab a cup of coffee or something like that within the next few weeks. There's a lot for her to get to know really quickly to hit the ground. So the more that you guys can help with that orientation and just knowing more people in the community would be great. So if you have a few moments to reach out to her, that would be appreciated. We'll do a neighborhood tour tomorrow, I think is the plan. We didn't get to it today. Beyond that, I'm super sad we're not doing Stage Fest this coming week. So I'm sad that we canceled that. And yet I'm also relieved because I don't know that I personally could have handled a major event at this time. So missing it, but not missing it. So I think that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. With it, yeah, so I think that is all. Thank you, everybody, for this. I hope this was informative. Please look for stuff in between now and the next board meeting, especially in regards to these charter amendments. And as we, as a board, decide, have that discussion and decide whether or not to take a stance on all three of these, two of them, one of them, none of them. Those are all options. So please look for more information coming out this next week. I encourage everybody to continue to look at our new calendar of all of the fun stuff going on, and especially some of the great stuff that especially the election committee has been organizing around what is going to be a very, especially here in Minneapolis, a consequential election. So continuing my run of never finishing a meeting significantly early. It is 8:59, so I will close the meeting and say thank you all. It was all great to see you, and we'll hopefully see you out in the neighborhood this month. So thanks.
Night all.